Good morning, everybody. My name is Keith Wilson, and welcome to the charter program of the Nassau Knights for Life, Life Matters for All, from the womb to the tomb. I'm proud to tell you that I've been involved with the pro-life movement for 35 years through the Knights of Columbus and other organizations, and the matters have gotten so important to us here in New York State that I felt it was time with my organization to put this podcast together on a weekly basis every Tuesday from 11 till noon. And it takes work and time and money to do this. And my co-hosts with me today, my guests, I should say, are here with me today to talk about this issue, but I want to introduce them now because they're doing a great job in supporting this program. First and foremost, to my extreme right and your left, is the owner of TLC Companions in Bethpage in New Jersey, my good friend Greg Massimi, who works with people all throughout his career as far as who need home health care, who need physical care, who need to be taken care of, Medicare support, etc. So he understands the life matters from a senior group and a senior perspective of his clients. Also with me today is, full disclosure, is my business associate in the real estate industry, my good friend Sal Polito, who's been by my side at this movement for 30 years, working with me in pro-life in Washington, Nassau County, the state, and everything else that we've done to further move the movement forward and get our message out there for the unborn. Now, Sal and I were trained by a man who is no longer with us, but he was our mentor in this movement, a man named Ed McKee, who lived in North Massapequa and was involved in the movement for 30 years from 1973 on after Roe v. Wade was decided. And this show today's show is dedicated to him because of what he did for us. And the show today is dedicated to the bill that the governor last week, just before New Year's, said she wants to sign. And that is called the Physician-Assisted Suicide Medical Aid and Dying Bill. Now, the pro-abortion caucus of the New York State Legislature wants us to believe that this is for the good of people and ending their lives on their own decision, whether they've been diagnosed 6 months or less to live with terminal illness, where they would have administered to them drugs or themselves drugs that would put them to sleep forever. Now, this, of course, is not the law, the natural way to die, from the womb to the tomb, the name of our show. And the bill itself puts in there provisions that are, quote, safeguards that they claim are very good, like people have to make a videotape before they agree to be put down, or they have to be able to have a psychiatrist evaluation, or 2 witnesses that are non-family members that would do this and okay this for them. But as we all know, and Greg will talk more to this about a slippery slope and what goes on in hospitals and what he sees from his perspective as far as those that could be done. We also, of course, know of people that have been out there that are in and been diagnosed as terminal in a hospital, by a doctor, whatever, and then all of a sudden you hear that they live for 13 more years after they were told they have 6 months to go.
Right.
So miracles, isn't that right, Greg?
Yes, it's true.
Greg, why don't you tell us about some of your experiences?
Well, my wife and I own TLC Companions. We're headquartered in Bethpage, but we have offices on the island in Nassau, Suffolk. We have New Jersey office, Florida office, and soon to be expanding to other states. But what we have seen is people who are coming through hospice, and they call us, which, there's nothing we can really do at that point, but then they'll come out of hospice and they'll get better and they'll live and they'll be productive. I've seen people come out of it and just go back to normal living. So, it could be anything. It could be a UTI. It's something simple as that, and nobody diagnoses it, and they come back and they have a productive life again.
And the bad part about the bill also is this bill that they have in Albany that she wants to sign, even though she made some amendments to it, the governor. The bad part about this bill is that there's no protections in there for the patient itself, meaning that, say a doctor misdiagnosis or the person who administers the drug, and then it was a mistake, they can't go after the people on a litigious way. And that's not fair to the patient in a hospital, to your point about the fact of the matter is that this could be a misdiagnosis, okay? Right. Yeah. And, we all know older people who do suffer. Don't get me wrong. I've seen older people with arthritis suffering, and that's only the beginning. But in other states, 12 other states have this bill, physician-assisted suicide. And this all started many years ago. We all remember Dr. Kevorkian. We could all remember
And that's
him.
the correct word, is assisted suicide. They just changed the name to make it sound more easy, but it's really that assisted suicide.
Exactly. And the bottom line, like Sal just said, assisted suicide, meaning you want to help somebody be put down. They have 12 states that have it. And she even has in there that one safeguard I like is that nobody can cross state lines to come to New York to be put down if they're not a resident. That is a good safeguard. But then again, there's a slippery slope as far as Catholics and other nurses who have a conscience clause who don't want to do is administer these drugs. So what do you say to these people, Greg? Okay.
Well, they do have
crazy.
that. They do have that with hospitals for nurses, that they don't have to be in the hospital emergency room or the operating room where they perform abortions. They can opt out according to New York law.
Exactly. The conscience clause.
Conscience clause.
Because it's against their belief or their religion. And the other thing I would say, Greg, is this. I've heard this from other people in Catholic hospitals around the country. Someone says to somebody in a bed, even if they don't have the tape or the permission or the signed documents to administer the drug, a nurse says to a patient, you know, you'd feel a lot better if I pulled that plug out of the wall for about 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. You know what happens when they go back to the room? The patient's dead.
Right.
And like you said, hospice and palliative care is a way to make people rest and be comfortable when they're dying. My own mother, I'm not ashamed to tell people, my own mother had a stroke when she was 68. And a week later, she was dead. They put her in palliative care in Northwell, Manhasset. And she died in palliative care, comfortable because her arteries had shut down, and she passed away at that age, as Sal well remembers. And we wanted to keep her as comfortable as possible, but we would have never signed a DNR or anything like that for her. I mean, that's up to the Lord when he wants to take all of us, okay? And I don't care what people's that are watching us today, everybody, I don't care what your religious beliefs are or your feelings are on this issue. But we can all certainly agree that people have a right to live their lives and be taken when the God above, whoever your God is, wants them to be taken. Not just say, well, let's help put him or her down. Such as also the pro-life issue, which we hear on today too. 63 million babies since 1973, when Roe was still legal in this country, taken from their mother's womb, which should have been the safest place for a baby, and aborted with a doctor's forceps. A doctor who took an oath to save lives and help people no matter what age they are, et cetera, et cetera. Now, today there are babies being born at 24 weeks and being saved, as we all know, because of the research and development in this country that is done so well. And thank God they're being saved because their parents want them. They want them to live healthy lives and do all those good things. Then, of course, there are those out there who don't understand that there's an option out there for them, and that is adoption. Adoption is the option. Sal can tell us about a good friend of ours, me and Greg and him, that we had, Tony Ventura, who had his daughter adopted 2 grandchildren early on. Go ahead, Sal.
Yeah, he had to go to Russia to actually get the adoption, and it cost them mega bucks to have the transformation from here to America to become a parent. And so far today, they've grown up to be very good citizens and good people that I know from a long time. But I just want to bring up something. Many years ago, a good friend of ours, of all of ours, was in a local hospital. He was hooked up, and his days were numbered. And I went to see him, and also Keith went with me to see him. And he used to have the what they called life-saving apparatus on him to keep him alive. And I went there one day, and I saw that it was all taken off, and he was still alive. And I called the nurse, and I said, "Why is the life-saving apparatus still not on this person?" And she says, "Well, he's on his way out, so he really don't need it." I says, "No." I says, I went to the desk, and I says, "Put that back onto that man." I says, "The good Lord will take that man when it's ready." Eventually, I think about 5 or 6 hours, maybe 7 hours later, he did die. But it wasn't by her taking off that life-sustaining life apparatus that kept him alive. He took it off, they put it back on, and when he died the natural way. God rest his soul, he's up in heaven now.
Now, Greg, would your business with TLC, I thought of this before with our show, would your business with TLC, with companionship, if this law is signed, and I know that this is rhetorical because I know we haven't all researched this, but do you think there would be ramifications as far as insurance policies and the Medicare procedures for pay for people's bills if they were to decide to do this, or they wouldn't touch that apparatus, you don't think?
You know, I don't know on that. I don't have an opinion on that.
Okay.
But I know a lot of our clients have long-term insurance policies, which they paid for most of their lives, and they would utilize that policy to have care from us or from others. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure if you had that policy, it'd keep you want to stay in the game a little longer because it's not draining your account. I mean, I've seen people go through so much money; it's sad.
without long-term insurance.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And that's the argument like groups would use, like Compassion and Choices would say, well, you don't want to eat up all their benefits and money, so this will help that too. But the bottom line is if you don't eat up their money, if they're dead, they can't use it anyway if they're put to sleep. So they can't enjoy their money.
Right.
Okay. Also, our audience should be aware of something, and that is on what we just talked about, the other side of life, the babies in the womb. For those of you who don't know this out there watching this podcast, Planned Parenthood, until the Trump administration, was getting $500 million a year for their programs and services that they, quote, offer under women's health care. Now, there's a Planned Parenthood office right here in Massapequa on Carmen's Road by the old mall, the old Sunrise Mall, across from a Women's First Life Center, which, thank God, is there as well. So thank God there's an option from across the street, instead of killing a baby, to go and save the baby across the street with the right referrals, money, and needed items. Now, Planned Parenthood getting $500 million of our money is disgraceful for one reason, not only for abortion under women's health care, but the second reason is that the life centers in this country don't get a dime. There's over 27 or 2,500 life centers in this country that don't get a federal dime to help save children.
Wow.
And yet the federal money goes to Planned Parenthood to help put children to death in the mother's womb. Now, thank God there are people and warriors out there who go to the Planned Parenthoods and picket, especially here on Long Island and around the country, who will help and get a person by their window or a couple in their car saying, why are you coming here? And they're coming here, they'll say, because of an abortion. And then when they counsel them as a sidewalk counselor, they're able to get them to turn around, go to a life center, and possibly have that child when they introduce, especially the fact that the baby is a person, at conception, it's a beating heart, there's life in the womb, and also the fact of the matter is there's no reason why you couldn't put it up for adoption.
Right.
Many, many young couples today, including people in my family, can't have children. And they would adopt these babies and take good care of them and help them have strong, vital lives. Okay? You guys are both fathers and grandfathers. I am not. But I know one thing for sure. If I was, if my daughter came to me and said she was expecting and not married, I would help her along the way to take care of it and do the best, whatever her option was, her decision. But certainly not to abort. Go ahead.
And it's terrible that we have to go to foreign countries to adopt babies when we have over here in America where the women are getting abortions, they could take those babies, and our citizens don't have to go to Russia or any other country to adopt a baby. They could do it right here in America.
Exactly.
And that would be a very, very big help. That's why, as a concerned citizen, I'm so much against this bill that was passed, and there's really not that many safeguards. Actually, you can't unring a bell now, of course, from what I understand, if I'm correct, the bill was already signed.
The governor?
Yes.
She didn't sign. She has pledged to sign it. She hasn't signed it yet, because they adopted her safeguards in the bill.
Well, there should be some information there, like line by line, what they could do, what they can't do, because it's still vague on how it could be administered. We need something.
Well, that's a good point you raise. And Greg, you know what? You may see this in your industry too. There are states, I was going to say this before, there are 12 other states who've approved this bill. And they see people out there now using this to say somebody to a doctor, I'm psychiatrically sick, I want to commit suicide. I'm overweight, I want to commit suicide. That's not a terminal illness, but you know what? This is going on. Okay? This is going on. Now, does that mean that those aren't sicknesses? Of course, they could be. And they should have sympathy, and they need prayer and medicine to help them. And I agree with all that. Mm-hmm. But you know what? That happens now. That's going on. And the bottom line is, who determines what the illness is, if it's terminal or not? We're all terminally ill when you think about it, because we're all going to die. Right. But does terminal illness mean if I say to this Dr. Missimi, my name is Keith Wilson, and I have a problem, and I'm a big guy, I'm overweight, and I say, Greg, doc, these shots didn't help me, whatever, I want to be put to sleep. What doctor in his right mind would do such a thing? You know?
Yeah.
Well, if it's not written down that they can't do it, they could do it.
And
there's a lot of unscrupulous doctors.
That's the point Sal was making. There should be, at least in the law, a listing of what concurs as far as applicable to. If you have, I don't want this law, but if we have to have it, should it say in there terminal cancer, pancreatic cancer? Should it say in there kidney disease? That's going to kill you within 2 years, because we all know many people on dialysis don't last a long time, maybe 5 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, terminal diabetes, amputations. I'm just using examples, not that they're right,
but specified
in there where you can't say, well, doc, I've got a hangnail, I want to be put to sleep. It's like today. It's like the transgender movement.
Yeah.
I want to go to the bathroom. I could say to the owner of this studio, "Is there a men's and ladies room?" As an example. Yeah, there is. Well, there's somebody in the men's room. Well, today I'm a lady. I want to use the ladies' room. I mean, this is the crap that goes on. It's crazy. It's
Unbelievable.
crazy, and nobody thinks of these things when they do these things. Now, I was told by Assembly people to our audience. And again, I want to reiterate, this is the Knights for Life, Womb to the Tomb. My two guests are Sal Polito and Greg Massimi. Greg is our main sponsor today with TLC Companions, his great business for home health care and taking care of the sick and the indigent people here on Long Island, all over the country, Jersey, Florida, and many other places. And he's got a great business background. And Sal, of course, and I are real estate brokers, and we're also sponsors of the show today. The bottom line is that there's so many people out there who need care today and living longer, which is great. That's the bottom line. The Lord is letting them live longer. So why do doctors and legislators that are on the liberal side want to take their lives from them? This is crazy. This is crazy. And it should be up again to their higher, as they said in the old Hebrew National commercial, a higher authority to say to them when it's time to go or time to stay. And of course, there are peripheral issues over the years in the pro-life movement that we haven't even talked about, which we will in future shows. This show is going to air every Tuesday from 11 till 12 on all different platforms, X, Roku, iHeartRadio, Facebook, Twitter, all the bottom line programs that are out there too, and Rumble too, a great conservative platform that's out there as well that I was told about recently, so people can see this and view this and use this when they want to. And the other issues we're going to discuss in future weeks with guests like Greg and Sal are stem cell research, which was a big item back in the 90s. Again, assisted suicide. There was a big issue back in the 2000s. Sal and I remember this girl. Her name was Terry Schiavo.
Oh, yeah.
She was in Florida, and it went back and forth with her husband to have her put to sleep. She had collapsed all of a sudden in a party or wherever she was in the early 2000s, and it went back and forth with doctors in the courts literally day by day. Unfortunately, the parents and the husband lost out, and the brother, and the husband won, and they were able to put her down, even though Florida didn't have assisted suicide. And this, of course, is something that needs to be discussed as well with this issue because it goes on again in different states. There is also something that we should have in the state of New York, and the country, which I believe in the Constitution, and we were hoping that when Roe v. Wade was overturned in 22 by the Supreme Court, that Justice Alito, everybody out there, would have done this and helped to get this through, which he did a great job in writing the opinion, and that would have been a human life amendment. Why is there no 26th or 27th Amendment as a human life amendment in this country, where people have the life, liberty, and the happiness, but without life, you don't have both? There should be an amendment to the Constitution that allows that, to say, okay, that's it, no more playing games. And it also has weakened other countries. Ireland had a human life amendment, which about 3 years ago, they backtracked on a vote and they took it away from their constitution in their country, which is very sad. Okay, so that was taken away. Then you have other people who feel, well, this is not a political issue. This is not a governmental issue. This is a woman's issue, a personal issue. And of course, those on the left are on the left saying, well, it's my body. I'll do what I want with it. And you know what? There's a point to that. But I would say this: don't make the child if you can't take care of it. Mm-hmm. Don't make it if you can't take care of it. Okay? The bottom line is that child at conception has a right to be born. And you know what? The three of us at this table, thank God our mothers were pro-life.
That's why we're here.
Right or wrong? Thank God our mothers were pro-life.
Right.
If they weren't, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Exactly.
Okay? And even the illegal, they talk about illegal back alley abortions. That's as old as the hills as when a mother died at childbirth. When's the last time anybody heard a mother die at childbirth? That doesn't happen anymore. Just like the old back alley abortions with quote a coat hanger. Right. This is to scare young women to vote the way they want them to vote. Right. Okay? And put the money where they want to put the money. Right. So you know what? That's a lot of garbage. And you know what? These are all some of the things I said to our audience that we're going to be discussing in the weeks to come. And also, don't forget about those life centers out there and the donations that they need. If you have a life center in your community throughout the country and you want to send them money, just put an envelope in their mailbox at their house or their building they're in. And I'm sure they'd appreciate it to help with the issues we're discussing today, to help these young girls carry these babies to term and have car seats, diapers. Some of the churches in our area, no matter what religion, also will do what's called spiritual adoption or spiritual showers, baby showers. The baby's not born yet, but people will give gifts every week at the Christmas time or during the year to bring 9 months of gifts to a church: diapers, formula, car seats, rattles, pacifiers, baby bottles, formula, Infamil or Similac, and they'll bring it to the church, and then the church locally is able to get it to a life center who needs it. Sal and I have seen that many times.
Right, exactly.
And they give it where they should.
And the churches, they have bring bottles and things like that, and all kinds of...
Yeah, talk about the baby bottle campaign. Yeah. That's a good point.
They have baby bottle campaigns that the churches have. You bring the bottles to the church, so this way they can help, when baby is born, that they can help them. So it's something that everybody wants to do, but I think, again, what Keith was saying, that giving money to the abortion places, they should be given to the Right to Life organizations. I don't know exactly how much money they're getting, but if they're not getting it, they should be getting it. If the other side gets it, why not our type of situation where the Right to Life, those organizations where you said we have about 250 of them, they should be able to get in some federal money. That's something that the people out there that are listening should be able to write to their congressman and say, there's an old saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And at this point, we're not getting what we should be getting.
The baby bottle campaign is also important, Greg, because the church gets them from the Life Center to give out at Mass, no matter what, again, congregation.
Right.
And the people get them and they say, bring them back in 3 weeks. And many people are asked to fill them with loose change and put the nipple back on the bottle. Very interesting concept to save children. Now, some of the life centers around the country are able to raise $10,000, $12,000 with loose change. That's pretty cool, okay? But again, it speaks volumes to the fact that the pro-life movement has to do all the extra work to get money, and our taxpayer dollars from Planned Parenthood was going to them all these years until Trump, okay, to help put a baby under. Doesn't it make sense to anybody out there and all of us here? Doesn't it make sense that rather than put a baby under, you want to put money there to save a child? If you're a grandparent out there watching this, or a mother or father out there watching this, and you love your children, which I'm sure most of us in this country, all of us do, you'd have to say to yourself, God forbid, if I needed money to save that baby when it was born and my daughter or son-in-law or son and daughter-in-law not getting hurt, I would want that money in that hospital to put ultrasounds, etc. And that's a program, by the way, called the ultrasound machine that the Knights of Columbus sponsors. It's a great program. They've put about 2,000 ultrasound machines in this country, in hospitals and pregnancy care centers, where when the girl was thinking of an abortion, she went to the doctor's office with the ultrasound that we've sponsored in the Knights of Columbus, and they saw the baby on the sonogram, and they said, you know what? I'm not killing it. That baby is moving in there. It's living in there, and it feels pain. It's got a beating heart, it's growing hands, it's growing feet, and it feels fetal pain when the doctor goes in with that forceps and does what he does. So thank God for that program that the Knights of Columbus Supreme Council has started, as well as they started a program 3 years ago called ASAP, Aid and Support After Pregnancy, meaning the girl needs help. The Supreme Council is there to refer them to the life centers in our country, refer them to baby care needs, refer them to whatever they need. Now, these are also cases where many a time the father or the boyfriend has walked away. They don't want to help. They don't feel obligated to help. They feel, well, you got yourself pregnant, which is not true, so I'm not going to be there. Then, of course, it's the spectrum of the middle, where the middle guy says, well, let's get married, I'll take care of you, let's see how it goes, and they have the baby. Then, of course, it's all the way over to the other side, where the father marries the girl, he truly loves her, and of course they have the child, and of course they have other children and live a great family life together. So this runs the spectrum.
Also, what I just want to mention is that every day they find new cures for diseases. And with this bill that they have passed, every day when the scientists and doctors, they find cures, isn't there something that if somebody says, I want to die, or have this done to me, maybe if they just keep on going on, maybe sooner or later they find a cure. I mean, every day they find cures for they just find recently a cure for, I think it was pancreatic cancer, one at a time. There was only one cancer they found a cure for. But maybe that person who wanted to die, maybe now he might have said, you know what, let me take a shot on this. Maybe it'll work. And as we go along, every I shouldn't say every day, but I'm just using that as an expression, but every time this happens, there's always a cure. Sooner or later, they find a cure. With our modern technology, it can be done. So why can't we prolong this? Don't stop somebody from living when there are chances out there that there may be a cure in the future.
Greg, have you ever had a patient tell one of your nurses or folks, care aides, or even you when you visited them, and if you could share a story with us, no names, of course. Have you ever had a patient tell any of your people and they came back to tell you that they said they wish they were able to be put to death?
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard it quite a few times from people. And, people say it, but when it comes down to it, people don't want to die.
Right.
They don't. I see them want to stay alive and fight till the very end. I've seen it many times.
And if there's a cure that may
And
be out
there's so
there.
many drugs in the pipeline now. Who knows what's going to come?
Yeah.
And we have right to try now, from what I understand.
The medical
Trump
medicines.
passed that. Yeah, right
he
to
passed
try.
that.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially for veterans, too, like you,
Yeah.
Sal,
Yes.
and Greg. And you know what else, Greg, I would say? When I worked for the town of Oyster Bay for 30 years, I worked in the clerk's office for 15 of them. One day I was there, we did licensing of different issues, Sal. And one day I was at the office in Oyster Bay, and a tall kid, about 16 years old, everybody, walked in the office for a license for a disabled beach pass, and he was only 16 for a disability. He had a hole in his neck because he had to use it as a breathing tube, but it was closed up. And this speaks to about wanting to die and when the Lord wants us versus the other. I said to the kid, I forget his name, but I say his name was John. I said, John, what happened to you? He was his mom. He said, Mr. Wilson, I was on a go-kart up on the North Shore on my go-kart, and I got hit by a car on Brookville Road. This is a true story. And I said, well, how did that happen? He said, the guy didn't see me, hit me, whatever. He says, and Mr. Wilson, he says, I died. He says, I died.
Oh.
He said, when I died, he says, all of a sudden I saw a big crucifix and the Lord looking down on me. And he said to me, John, no, you're not finished yet. Go back. Meaning on this life.
Wow.
Now, there are people some of us remember this from the 70s and 80s. There were people who had out-of-body experiences who died and then came back to life. Okay, some of them resuscitated on the street, in an accident, in an ambulance, whatever. So when you hear these things and you talk about assisted suicide, there are people out there who would tell you, well, the Lord doesn't want suicides. He wants you when he wants to take you.
Right.
And if we believe like this picture of our blessed, beloved mother, Mary, behind me shows us, she's the mother of us all. And when she wants us and the Lord wants us, that's when we'll go back to her from we came from. And I truly believe that there are people out there who could tell us these things and send us communications to this program every week about, and on Facebook and all the platforms, about issues they've heard of either in parents, themselves, their children, whoever. And they survived. And they were sent back here because they didn't want them. The Lord didn't want them. Okay? Now, I got to believe, too, Greg, in your industry, that there are some older people out there as well who, while they do feel terrible, you've probably seen the other end, which is a good end of the spectrum, and that is they also tell you, I want to feel better and I want to live my life.
Absolutely. I want to go out. I want to get back out. I want to go to a restaurant. I want to go to a show, an opera, Manhattan for Christmas, whatever. They want to get up, but they want to get out.
I want to see my children grow up, whatever. And grandchildren grow up in some cases, like you're saying. Absolutely, absolutely. So the bottom line is, everybody out there, that we're here today to discuss this issue. It's so important. And we would ask you one favor, our audience out there. Keep this in your mind for your families, your friends, any doctors you know who you may want to talk to. Don't be afraid to ask legislators their position on life when you vote for them. Don't be afraid to ask people out there how they feel about certain things when they're against an issue and you know they're on the wrong side. Right. See, the bottom line is the graphics behind us show one thing, that the Lord is on our side. We have that on our side, and no matter what anybody says, the Lord is on our side. He gives us life and he taketh away, as they say. So with these graphics behind us with the Mother Mary on her knees, we know where life comes from and who takes it away when it's time to go away. And in our own time, we will all do that. Now, certainly we all have free will. The free will to live and do what we can with our bodies and our doctors and our nurses and the things we need to take care of. And that free will sometimes is abused by people, where somebody will overdose on drugs and they do take their own life, either mistakenly, accidentally, or purposely. But the free will also should be used to help people, to be able to say to an expectant mom, let me refer you to a life center or a crisis pregnancy center, or let me refer you to a doctor I know who could help you and counsel you the right way, not the wrong way. Not go into Planned Parenthood under the guise of, quote, woman's health care, and have our tax dollars put that baby in a grave what nobody even ever saw, okay? Or let us also remind you out there today as well that there are people out there, no matter all over the place, like in Nassau County, there's a guy named AMT Children of Hope. His signs are all over the county on telephone poles. His name is Tim Jacquard. He's a former EMT in the county, and he runs a great program to help expectant mothers. And I'm going to share a story with you he told us recently in our chapter meeting. He helped save a young girl's life who's now 24 years old. When she was a baby, they were going to abort. And the father is not in the picture even to this day. And this girl is either now married or going to get married. And she asked Tim Jacquard to walk her down the aisle.
Wow.
Beautiful.
As a guy who saved her life. This is what you hear. These are some of the great stories in the movement you hear, like as if you were going to hear, how many times you hear about a botched abortion? Yeah. A girl wants to have an abortion and they botch it and the baby is born. There are some doctors out there who can't answer a question when a legislator asks them in a hearing, doc, if that baby was born alive, would you still want to kill it? They can't answer. They look at them like they have two heads because they know the truth is wrong. Okay? And in a botched abortion, that is murder when that baby is born. So they're afraid and they know better, okay? And there's another powerful thing in this movement with us today, guys, and everybody out there, and that is the youth. When Sal and I go to Washington, D.C. and used to go, there were tons, and even to this day, tons and tons of young people in this movement who have signs that say, I am the pro-life generation.
Yes. And there was a misconception about people going to Washington. It was mostly older people. I was amazed that all the years that me and Keith would go down there with Ed McKee, that there was young women with babies, carriages. So it's a movement that's there. It should be more brought out. And I'm going to say to Governor Kathy Huckle, now's your chance. Vote your conscience. Don't have to vote because of elections or anything like that. You are a Catholic, from what I understand, and you were brought up a Catholic. So think of what you're going to be signing, and just by you putting your name on that document is going to be taking lives away that shouldn't be done that way. Only the good Lord should do that.
And also, the bottom line is this. The bottom line is, who has a right to play God? Who has a right? No, again, this is not a Catholic issue. This is an issue for all girls and women and husbands and boyfriends and fathers. Greg, who has a right to play God? I could only imagine a guy like you, if you were at one of your patients' homes, a true believing man you are, and a patient said to you, Mr. Massimi, I know it's legal now. Would you please pull that plug out of the wall? I can only imagine what your response would be. Seriously, And I know you said in the beginning of the show, you see both sides of it. And that's an honest statement and a true statement. But the bottom line is, how could anybody in good conscience do this? That's the question, okay? And doctors take this oath to save children and babies and lives. So anybody who's going to participate in this, everybody out there, you should not even be afraid to ask your doctor. If your conscience bothers you about abortion and or end-of-life issues at an older age, you should not be afraid to ask your doctor, especially if you're a senior, would you participate in something like this? If I ask you to put me down, would you do that? And hopefully they say to you no. And if they don't be afraid to dialogue with them while you're in the room being examined or whatever you're doing privately. Don't be afraid to say to them, well, I don't agree with you, doc. It's time for me to get a new doctor because you know what? This is going to be a big problem in my relationship with you as a patient-client under HIPAA laws and everything else. And I know they can't tell you about certain circumstances under HIPAA again, but don't be afraid to say to them, what's your position on this, doc, as a senior citizen? Many senior groups against this law, medical-aided dying, lobbied the governor to not sign this because they didn't want to be expediently, to quote, be disposed of in a garbage pail. Not that that would happen like that, but their meaning, I don't want to be put down like I'm a piece of garbage. And a lot of that got back to the governor. That's why it took so long to decide to sign this or not. Unfortunately, she decided, even with her protections and safeguards, to still sign it, which is bad news for the pro-life issue and the end-of-life issue. Because we all know euthanasia and to be euthanized, they do that to dogs and animals when they're in pain and suffering. And the other side would make an argument, well, if they're suffering, it's right to do that. Yeah, but a dog and a cat is not an animal. They're not a person, rather.
Right.
They're not a person. It's just unbelievable. So the bottom line is, don't be afraid to dialogue with people on this issue. And in fact, the prayer I have in front of me right now is to celebrate the gospel of life. O Mary, bright dawn of the new world, mother of the living, to you do we entrust the cause of life. Look down, O mother, upon the vast numbers of babies not allowed to be born, of the poor whose lives are made difficult, of men and women who are victims of brutal violence, of the elderly and the sick killed by indifference or out of misguided mercy. Grant that all who believe in your Son may proclaim the gospel of life with honesty, love, and to the people of our time. obtained for them the grace to accept that gospel as a gift ever new, the joy of celebrating it with gratitude throughout their lives, and the courage to bear witness to it resolutely in order to build together with all people of goodwill the civilization of truth and love to the praise and glory of God, the creator and lover of life. Amen. And that was written by John Paul II under Evangelum Vitae, during Evangelum Vitae's year, while he was the Pope back in the early 2000s. That prayer was adopted by the Knights of Columbus for the gospel of life. There are many great prayers and many great clergymen out there and many great priests who write prayers for the unborn and position papers like I do on this. Medical Aid in Dying is one I looked at called A Layman's Look at Physician-Assisted Suicide. And the bottom line is the pro-choice lobby allows doctors through telehealth to prescribe abortion pills like mifepristone and RU-486 to be taken to terminate a pregnancy. The same for older people like seniors on telehealth could easily be misdiagnosed during, say, a pandemic or epidemic who could not see a doctor in person, and medicine prescribed which is severely flawed and their life is gone. The Patients' Rights Council, which is formerly from Ohio, now in New York, would be a fine referral source for patients out there. Patients' Rights Council, PRC, to be able to have families in need and guidance when a scenario described above herein exists. Don't be afraid to go on their websites. You can also go on the Long Island Coalition website, prolifeed.org, for resources, doctors, care centers. Again, prolifeed.org. And again, PRC, Patients' Rights Council here in New York, for help that may be needed as far as what they're doing and the things that they're working on to keep people and babies to be born and seniors not to be killed. Greg.
A quick story that when my 18-year-old now, Sienna, is her name, she just started LIU. She's going into her second semester. So we were at the doctor. My wife was 40. I was 50, my second set of children. And the doctor was trying to convince me that at my age and her age, that the baby might have issues when she's born.
Wow.
And I get a little emotional talking about it. And he was trying to convince us that we should abort the baby.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I couldn't believe it. Like,
Wow.
So I have a short fuse, a little bit of a hot temper, and I started getting in his face a little bit. And his son came in to calm it down. He was about 6, 7. I didn't care. I said, who would say that to a mother and a father?
Right.
And we were definitely determined that we were going to go forward and have the baby, which we did, thank God.
She's beautiful.
And tell us about her now, Greg. Tell our audience about her now, Greg.
She's a pretty good looking girl.
That's a perfect example
She's a good
of what's
looking girl.
going on.
She's very well balanced. She's in her freshman year at LIU Post.
Sir?
She's in a sorority. She's doing extremely well and has many, many friends.
And the doctor said you should have aborted her.
Not all doctors are right.
That's
See?
right.
It boils down to that.
The entire point of today's show on the other end of a baby, but the same as an older person. The diagnosis is wrong. They want to put them in an early grave or a later grave with the help of stuff on this earth, rather than let the Lord take them in His time to His earth, no matter, again, whatever your religion is. This is a classic story of things we hear all the time. And his daughters, and I happen to, full disclosure, I happen to know Greg and Sal's wives and their families, and I know Sienna. You know what? A beautiful girl, a beyond reproach, a smart student, a class act, and you know something else? Greg and Robin, for 18 years of their lives now, wouldn't have had that if they listened to that stupid doctor.
Imagine that.
And that is a stupid doctor. I don't care what anybody says.
And that's the doctor that you're going to give permission to take a life.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that?
Exactly. That's the point here, everybody. It works. The movement and these issues all fall in line with each other, because whether you're young in the womb or older, your life is taken. Okay?
You can't take it back. Once it's gone,
No,
it's gone.
that's right. Okay? So the bottom line is this. Now, also, everybody, in our future shows to come, I want to tell you that there are some people that we've lined up as our guests for the next few Tuesdays. Again, Tuesdays, 11 till noon, and you can catch it on all the platforms. It'll be sent out by our great studio here at Paradise with our friend Bob Lucera. Next week is I'm going to have a group from Queens here, one lady named Fran Yellico, from a group called The Bridge to Life. They're a Life Christ Pregnancy Center that served the borough of Queens mostly as well, and there'll be some other great guests coming up, guys like Bruce Barquette, an attorney, Connell Friel, American Family Advocates, and many more down the road, and you'll see them as you meet them as this podcast goes out every week for us. I also, again, want to thank Greg for being our main sponsor today. I asked him as my friend, would you sponsor us for 10 weeks? And he gave me a check right away. He's very generous in many other ways. I can't even get into them now, but he's very, very generous. He's a successful man, and he shares that success with everybody that he believes in their cause, and I can't thank him enough for being that today. Of course, my co-host and my good friend, as I said in the beginning, Sal, with us today to help us get this message and get this broadcast out there, doing the things that we do for the unborn, the indigent, the aged, etc. And one last point on the indigent, everybody, before we wrap up. The Nassau County Medical Center is billions of dollars in debt.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they get Medicaid funding to provide abortion to young mothers there that are indigent, rather than try and take the money and say, let's save lives. The Coalition for Life has picketers there every year in January on a third Sunday, which is also the day of the Cardinals Mass in New York City in the cathedral, which we go to as Knights of Columbus. And the protesters at the hospital are out there with signs saying, save aborted, save children, save lives, don't abort children, I regret my abortion and all that. So our own medical center here in our backyard, 7 miles from here in East Meadow, performing abortions with Medicaid funding from the state to do what they need to do. And the numbers are available. There's some 2,000-3,000 abortions provided there yearly in the medical center, which is sad.
Jeez. Because
that's a hospital for indigent people. They should be looking to help mothers with babies, not help them say, well, let's put it out of there, etc. And again, in closing comments, we understand all circumstances are different. We understand people have lives to live. We understand that everybody has to make tough decisions. We all do, especially in today's society with social media and things going on with our children and anti-communication, things that go on, and all the things that our families face out there more than ever today. More than ever. But I would tell all of you in our audience, and Sal and Greg know this, that when you fight the good fight and you try and help people rather than help them take the easy way out, you know what? Nothing is worth doing unless there's a fight for it, because that's what makes us all stronger. So I want to thank my two co-hosts today. I want to thank you, our audience out there, for watching this today with us and communicating this message through whatever means you can after you see these programs weekly. And I want to thank our studio again, Strong Island Paradise with Bob Lacera, and thank all of you for viewing us today. We wish you all a happy, healthy 2026. Godspeed, and may you all stay well, be well. And again, on behalf of the unborn, I'm Keith Wilson, the chairman of Knights for Life. Thank you, and God bless.
Good night, everybody.
God bless.
God bless you.